I'm going to go ahead and record. All right. Thanks,
Hey,
Jeanette.
awesome.
One other thing I forgot to mention too, you guys, is at the bottom there's a chat box. So I would love for you to participate, vocally here on video. But if you can't or you're not comfortable, there's always that option too where you can type things in, and I'll try to remember to keep an eye on that. So today we are going to be talking about Sister Eubank's talk, entitled "By Union of Feeling We Obtain Power with God." And this, I'm not very good at lettering. I should have had my daughter do it, but I tried to put a few notes up here just to kind of keep us on track. This was a really good talk. I wanted to begin, we talked about Zoom logistics. I want to just give a quick shout out and welcome to any new sisters. I know, like Jeanette said, we've been having you introduce yourself all over the place, but we're excited that you're here, and we know this is a difficult time. Is there anyone that wanted to quickly say hello, that especially if there's anyone newer that we haven't had the chance to meet yet? Okay. All right. So let's dive into the talk. I wanted to ask, first of all, for everyone to just think about this word union. I put it in blue because it's such a powerful word, and a word that we're going to focus on a lot throughout this lesson. Could some of you tell me, and I thought it would be useful to think about it in terms of your family. So for example, what would it look like, or what do we think it looks like if we're united with our spouse or with our children or with our parents? What does union mean to you? And you can just go ahead and speak up, anyone that wants to.
I'll say something, Jody.
Okay, thanks.
So, to me, union, and when I specifically think of my husband, I think that we are, even though we may have disagreements, we're on the same page with the same end goals. So, we may have different ways that we want to get to what we want, but we both have agreed upon, we both are in alliance on getting to the same place.
Okay, good. Anybody want to add anything to that? What about think about it in terms of our ward or our relief society. How do we know if we have union as a relief society or in our ward family? What does it feel like? What does it look like?
I'll say something.
Okay.
I was just thinking, you support one another and you cheer for one another, and you're excited for each other's accomplishments that they're making. You're not threatened by people, but you're cheering for them. You're excited for them.
Yes, that's a good one. There's a comment in the chat that says to feel connected and part of a team with the same goal. So one of the things that I think can be challenging about this concept of union, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, is that sometimes we're sort of not on the same page, right? Like I was just in my job as a coach, I was just coaching a woman who says, well, this is how I think we should parent the kids, and this is how my husband parents the kids. And I don't like it. We should be on the same page. And she kept saying this, that's what I always think of too. Just like Jeanette said, that it means we're on the same page. And I said, she's just kept emphasizing, I just want us to be on the same page. And I said, well, you could just start parenting like your husband, and then you guys would be on the same page. And of course she's like, well, no, I want him to parent the way I parent, right? That's what I always mean when I'm like, we need to get on the same page. I mean, you need to get on my page, right? In reality. And it's challenging because we all are unique individuals, even when we have the same goals, right? Like within our family or our ward or our relief society, I think we do all have similar goals anyway. I think we're united in our goal, but we're often not united in the way that we think we should get there, and the best method and the best approach. And so I like what everyone's saying here and adding to it, which is that union means in many cases compassion and curiosity and understanding and openness. which is challenging to do because I always think my way is the right way. And that my job is to convince everyone of that. But that actually separates me from people when I think that, because most everyone else tends to feel the same about their own ideas. So what unites us is being curious and compassionate and open to understanding one another. And that can be challenging to do, right? Sister Eubank in this talk quotes Joseph Smith, who was speaking to the Relief Society shortly after the Relief Society had just been formed. And I pulled this quote out of the quote that she gave that I loved. She says, or he said, I should say, "We must be merciful and overlook small things." So I liked that quote because there are big things, right? There are sometimes things that are deal breakers for us, like certain, like if my husband decided that the best way to parent the kids was to hit them every time they did something wrong, that's a big thing. That's not something I necessarily would just want to overlook. But there are so many, most of the times the reason that we're not united is all the little small things, right? And to remind ourselves that most of those things don't matter at all. They're small things, and that we have to learn to overlook them to be merciful. Sister Eubank then divides it up. She says that she's been thinking about this. In fact, I want to read really quickly the questions she said she'd been pondering that I thought were great questions to ponder when it comes to feeling more unity. She says, "How can I understand people around me better?" I love that question because usually what I'm asking is, how can I get people around me to understand me better? Instead, how can I understand people around me better? How will I create that union of feeling when all are so different? What power from God might I access if I am just a little bit more unified with others? And that part of this quote too, this is also a quote from Joseph Smith, that we obtain power with God when we're united. And so I love that question. What power might I access if I am just a little bit more united? And then her answer to this question came in 3 parts that I wanted us to dive into and discuss a little bit here today. So the first thing that she discovered in answer to this question was to have mercy. So let me start out with this quick scripture, and then I want you to be thinking about these questions, if you would, please. When has someone showed mercy to you? And how can we be more merciful towards others? But let me begin with Jacob chapter 2, verse 17, which reads, "Think of your brothers and sisters like unto yourself, and be familiar with all, and free with your substance, that they may be rich like unto you." And then Sister Eubank goes on to say, let's replace the word substance with mercy. Be free with your mercy, that they may be rich like unto you. So, does anyone have anything that comes to mind that you'd be willing to share, an example of when someone has shown mercy to you? By the way, if you're joining late, hi and welcome. We're excited that you're here. Okay, I'll share one, and then if you think of one, please feel free to speak up in a minute. So, well, actually, I had a couple of examples. One where I didn't do a very good job of showing mercy, and then I realized it later. So, and again, back to what Joseph Smith said, that sometimes it's a combination of all these little things. So I was driving one day to pick up my daughter from preschool, and I was running just a little bit late. So I was kind of in that like, let's go kind of mode, rushed. And I'm at the stoplight, and the light turns green, and the car in front of me doesn't go as quickly as I think they should. And so I find myself getting annoyed. And then finally that car starts to go, and the driver's going really slow, and I'm feeling more annoyance. Like, come on, buddy, let's go. I got to get there. I'm late, right? And just a little thing, but I was feeling that kind of judgmental place in my mind. And then the road opened up into 2 lanes, and so I was able to get closer and pass, and I noticed a sticker on the back of this car window that said, Vietnam vet. And immediately I just felt so bad for how judgmental I'd been. I thought, okay, like, I don't know what this guy has been through, but he's been through some stuff probably. And, maybe he's older, maybe he has health problems. Like, it's okay if he drives a little bit slower than what I think he should be driving. And like, I just felt this wave of, first of all, feeling bad for how impatient and judgmental I'd been, but then a reminder that, you know, everybody has reasons for why we behave. And he wasn't even doing anything wrong, but even people that are doing something we might say is wrong, there are reasons for it. And it always comes from their own pain, their own hurt, or their own challenges. And for me to be judgmental and not merciful to people only separates me from those people and from the spirit and from God. And, it was just a really good reminder. I had another experience where when I was pregnant with one of my kids, was very pregnant, was close to delivering. And I was at the grocery store one night, like in my sweatsuit, getting groceries. And a man behind me got a little impatient with me because I was blocking the aisle. And he, in this kind of tone, said, "Could you move out of the way?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry." And as I turned to move, then he saw my belly because he had come from behind. He suddenly saw my huge pregnant belly and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were in a delicate condition." And it stands out in my mind because I remember him using those words, delicate condition. And it reminded me, both that story and this example with the man driving slow, that we don't always wear our challenges right there on our belly or put stickers on our car, but we all have them. And so when we remember that, when we remember that everyone is worthy of love and patience and mercy and forgiveness, and that we don't have to be the judge, then I don't know, it's freeing to me. Does anybody have any other examples that came to mind? Natasha.
I've just been thinking that when I kind of let go of assumptions or expectations, just kind of what you mentioned, it's a lot easier for us to give mercy.
Yes.
And ourselves. I mean, it's important, I think, to have healthy expectations, but if we just assume where we are, and it just makes it hard for us to.
Yes, it's true. It's true. There's another comment in the chat that says, "When I lose my temper and my daughter will forgive me almost right after it happens, it humbles me to have her be so forgiving." Yeah, that's awesome. Like, what a great example that other people are, right? Sister Hampton, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say a few months ago, I was shopping at Winco, and I don't love the Winco parking lot. And I don't love driving a huge Suburban.
Mhm.
And I had parked and I was having a hard time backing out because of the way the car's parked. So I was like, oh, there's no one in front of me. I'll just pull forward. And so I pulled forward. And as I turned, I scraped the car on my right.
Oh, no.
Oh, darn. So I pulled into another parking spot, and I got out to look, and I was like, I guess I need to wait. So I called the store, and as I'm waiting, calling the store, a man walks by and says, "Thanks for taking care of that. Lots of people would have just driven away." So that kind of made me feel good. But then when I got off the phone, the gal came out whose car it was pretty quick, and she was so kind to me. And I put a wrench in her day, and she could have been like, "Oh, why did this have to happen?" She was super nice and kind, and I felt like that mercy, and I felt the mercy of the man while I was waiting up there for her to come out. And I thought, oh gosh, they did see that, like, I was not in a happy condition. but they were kind, and I appreciated that.
I feel like it's easy to be sort of to think that people nowadays are super judgmental, and we hear on the news and we see examples all over the place of how everybody's just divided and everybody's angry and everybody's out to get each other. And I love little examples like that remind me, oh, guess what? most people are actually mostly good. Most people are kind. Most people do show mercy. Most people see when you're feeling bad and they respond accordingly. Now, that woman could have been really upset with you, right? Not everybody is in that place, but I do think that there are way more people in the world who are in a good place, who are kind, who want to be kind anyway. Like, I just love the idea that everybody's doing their best,
Yeah.
you know, and people mean well. So, yeah. Okay, awesome. So the second thing that Sister Eubank talks about is to make your boat swing. So she gives the example in here. I've never personally like rowed on a crew team. If anybody has, please elaborate on this for me. But this is an example of what happens when a crew team all rows together. They call it being in swing. When that moment, they say it happens just in moments when everybody's right on and people are adjusting themselves accordingly. So somebody with shorter arms is rowing a little differently than somebody with longer arms, might have to hold themselves back a little. And that when everybody's rowing together, the boat is performing at optimal speed, and they call it being in swing. And they said it feels amazing for those moments when it happens because you can feel the flow of everyone working together. So I wanted you to think about a time when you've experienced that feeling of working together with everybody. And again, it doesn't necessarily last for the whole project or the whole time, but those moments when everybody is working together. I'll share an example while you kind of think. Is I told Janelle Dobson recently that I really miss word choir. And it's not because I can sing really well. I can't really. I can just sing kind of average, but I love singing in the word choir because I love those moments when we're all singing and we all hit the right notes for a minute and we're all harmonizing, and Ani's always doing a beautiful job on the piano, or whoever's playing the piano, and it just feels, it really kind of gives me like an adrenaline rush. I had a friend tell me the other day that she read that singing actually releases endorphins, and that's why after you sing you feel a little bit lighter. But those moments when we're all singing together is awesome. And to me, I was like, that is, obviously we're trying to do more than just sing. We're trying to all work together as sisters, and we're trying to raise families, and we're trying to do work in the world. But I like thinking about those moments and thinking, how do I bring those into my family, into our ward, into our Relief Society? Anybody have any other thoughts on that or examples of that?
Go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just Jody, just when you were talking about choir, because I miss choir so much too. I was thinking about that recently.
Yeah.
I miss it so much. And just thinking about that when we're comparing it to having mercy on others, and you know, as a choir, when we're singing together, everybody has different parts. And there is no way that I could ever sing the soprano part, ever. Like, I wouldn't even try.
Yeah, me neither.
Everybody would be like, no, Jamie, you shouldn't do that. So when we think about that, just kind of in life and what everyone's going through, and that we're all supposed to be in this union, that sometimes we need to kind of take that step back and think, that's not our part. We have our own part. And, you know, when we're sitting in a word choir setting, it's a lot easier to be forgiving because, you know, that's their part. We have our own part. And I'm just grateful that we're all there and it comes together beautifully. And we have Janelle who's leading us and all that. And so when we kind of take a step back and look at our life and we think, you know, God has this, God can lead us all in our parts and what we're doing, and it will come together beautifully if we just have that mercy, if we kind of do our parts and get in that swing, and it will all come together.
Yeah, that's such a great reminder that back to what we were talking about earlier with just wanting everyone to just do it our way, like that doesn't work either. We need all of the parts. And I think about the body of Christ too, and that we, like this restored church, we represent the body of Christ, and there's all the different parts, right? We can't be all the same. We don't want to be all the same. It's not necessary. We need people that have strengths that we don't have. And you know, I think, again, learning to hear each other out and learning to not assume that we're always right, for me, has been the way I've been able to create more unity. Is even if my kids are not liking maybe something that I'm offering, like, I don't know, maybe we have a policy around screen time or something, and I will hear them out. If they say to me, well, I don't think this is fair, I'll say, tell me why. And it doesn't mean that I always give in. Sometimes I say, okay, but this is the rule. I say, tell me why. I want to understand. What am I missing? Is there something I don't know? And I think hearing everyone's perspective, right, really helps us then create that unity so that it feels like we're coming to that decision together, ideally. Let me read. There's another comment in the chat. And then if anyone wants to add anything, feel free. It says, as I live through my own life struggles and turn to the Lord, I realize how much mercy he has for me. He meets us where we are. He appreciates our efforts and then covers the rest. As I feel this from the Lord, it makes it easier for me to see the mercy he has for others as well. So understanding his mercy for us and giving ourselves grace helps us give others mercy and see his love for them. Such a great point, right? That the Lord doesn't judge us. He always has mercy for us, I should say. Okay, so let's go to the third and final thing that Sister Eubank answered that she found, which was to clear away the bad as fast as the good can grow. So this comes from a parable in Jacob chapter 5, or an allegory, she calls it. And it says, in this exquisite allegory in Jacob 5, the Lord of the vineyard planted a good tree in good ground, but it became corrupted over time and brought forth wild fruit. The Lord of the vineyard says 8 times, it grieveth me to lose this tree. The servant says to the Lord of the vineyard, spare the tree a little longer. And the Lord said, yea, I will spare it a little longer. And then comes instruction that can be applied to all of us trying to dig about and find good fruit in our own little vineyards. Ye shall clear away the bad according as the good shall grow. What does this story mean to you, to any of you sisters? How do we apply this idea of there was a good tree planted, but it brought forth some wild fruit?
I think when I think about that, I think about our thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we have innately, I think that we have good thoughts, but the world allows us to think things aren't so good. Like you're saying, I don't even watch the news because it just drives me crazy, but because they don't ever report anything good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can continually bring in the good thoughts, you will push away the bad thoughts. And so that's what I think about. It's more along the lines of thoughts, but thoughts, as we know, do turn to action. So if we can continually bring in the good and push away the bad, then that's where we are clearing away the bad as quickly as we can bring it. That's my thought.
That's a great way to think about it. I love that.
The other thing it makes me think of is we're all going to stray a little bit. We all may have a little bad fruit here and there, but I love how the Lord of the vineyard says, spare the tree a little longer. Mm-hmm. Spare me a little longer. I'm going to come back to that path. And then he has that mercy for us. And I love that.
More motorcycles going the other way.
Yeah.
Jody, I was just going to say too, kind of along the lines of what Anna just said, it makes me think of enduring to the end. That's kind of one of the hardest challenges that we've been given, is to endure to the end, because I am continuously making commitments to read my scriptures every day, to do all of these little things to the best of my ability. And I celebrate when I do it for a while, and then inevitably I mess up. So the reality is, I think in that allegory is that it's always it's continual for all of us to go through and and try again and kind of pick yourself up again and to keep trying. That's the goal, is to keep clearing away the bad and putting in the good. And but it's a lifelong effort.
Yeah, and I love to just remind myself that every single one of us is sometimes that corrupted tree. And sometimes that's because of choices that we make, but other times I like to think of it too just in terms of trials and challenges that we're experiencing. And and that is why we all need one another. I mean, I just read a little article yesterday about a restaurant owner somewhere in a small town who took just a little local, he has a little local restaurant. He took $2,000 of his marketing budget and he went and purchased gift cards to all the other local restaurants in town because he knows that supporting and lifting everyone, like the rising tide raises all boats, or however that quote goes, right? And just like we have to lift and support one another, whether it's again that if I'm that corrupted tree, I might have created that, or it might be circumstances outside of my control that create that. And it made me think about this term that I learned. I'm going to share my screen and share this photo with you all here for just a moment. This is a term they use in carpentry, and I apologize if I mess the wording up. I'm not a carpenter, but it's called, well, let me tell you what happens first. So when they're repairing, like you can see this looks like a roof or maybe floorboards or something. If they're going to remodel a place and fix up a place, sometimes the old boards that are there are just, they're old, they're getting weaker. But rather than tear it out, what they do is they take a new board and they lay it alongside the old piece of wood to reinforce that old piece of wood. And it's called sistering a joint. And I just love that because I think about our Relief Society and how that's what we do as sisters. We sister each other. We and others in our ward too, but sometimes I'm that old board that's weak and struggling and I need somebody to come alongside me. And other times I'm the one that should support someone else. And if you take a look at this picture here, if you see where the board intersects in perpendicular with the other board, notice that there are two boards on the far end to really reinforce that hinge. So sometimes they said if the board is really weak, they'll do a double sister side by side, which made me think about our ministering assignments and that, we don't have to do it alone. But I love the idea that that is how our Relief Society is set up. That is how our church is set up. And that is how the Lord hopes that we will show up in the world in general, is to support and sister one another. Anybody have any last minute thoughts on this one before we close, or experiences?
Jody,
Yes.
it's Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea.
Hi. Hey, I've just been thinking, like, I think of the many teams that I've been on throughout my life, and especially with volleyball, we spend a lot of time working on our individual skills. Where you're at a specific practice, and okay, the hitters go to one side, they work on that skill. The setters go to one side, they work on that skill. And it's important to work on individual skills, but supporting your teammate. And so if a setter is getting better and they're perfecting their skills, it doesn't make me any less of a hitter. And when we like sometimes in life, I think when other people are excelling, it makes us feel less, when that's not our skill, that's not our craft. We're not like, that's not the focus of our life. And so sometimes that can cause disunity when we're looking sideways in a negative way versus uplifting one another. And that's always a challenge. And I think that can be a challenge and part of like what we need to improve on in life. And that's something that, I don't know, it helps me focus on unity with those around me.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love that. Okay, let me just read these couple final awesome quote. I love that you guys are using the chat. Look at us. We're so tech savvy. And then we will close out and I'll let you go get everyone ready for church. It says, remembering our daily blessings gives us the peace and hope to face a new day. If we focus on the bad, it will canker our soul. And then Matthew 5:25, agree with thine adversary quickly. And Becca Rowland says, I always thought this was an interesting verse, but to agree, it means to have kind thoughts towards, to forgive quickly, and to forgive quickly, we get rid of the bad quickly. Yeah, really good. All right. I'm going to stop the recording here.